The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation continues to analyze the military biological activities of the United States in Ukraine and other countries. During the last briefing, we drew your attention to the transfer of unfinished Ukrainian projects to the territory of other states. It was shown that African states fell into the zone of increased interest of the United States. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Uganda. At the same time, the customers from the American government are the Threat Reduction Office of the Ministry of Defense, DITRA, the National Security Agency, and the U.S. State Department. Today, using the example of Nigeria, we would like to show that the stated goals of projects aimed at developing public health do not correspond to reality. Thus, the American military department claims that biological projects in Nigeria are aimed at combating HIV and AIDS. However, the effectiveness of this program raises serious questions. Despite the annual increase in funding, totaling about $100 million, the HIV incidence rate has remained virtually unchanged and is currently the same as in 2009. The mortality rate among HIV-infected people also shows negative dynamics. At the same time, the number of Nigerian citizens who received antiviral therapy with Gilead drugs has steadily increased over the entire funding period and reached 60% of the total number of patients. Let me remind you that this pharmaceutical company is affiliated with the Pentagon and tested its drugs on citizens of Ukraine. This allows us to conclude that American pharmacological drugs, the steady increase in consumption of which in Nigeria is recorded by statistics, do not have a real therapeutic effect, and Nigerian citizens are used as a free clinical base. Thus, under the guise of public health issues on the African continent, the Pentagon solved its own problems. It monitors the biological situation, collects and exports samples of infectious disease agents and their vectors. This activity continues to this day. In August 2022, DITRA entered into a 3-year contract with the US-based non-profit organization RTI International to provide epidemiological surveillance of infectious disease threats in Nigeria. We have repeatedly noted that one of the Pentagon's tasks is so-called biological espionage analysis of the epidemiological situation along the borders of geopolitical opponents and in the proposed areas of deployment of military contingents. We have materials at our disposal confirming that the American military department was tasked with monitoring the biological situation in the territories of Iraq and Afghanistan bordering China, Turkey, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. The documents emphasized the need to attract employees of Pentagon contracting organizations to leadership positions, and field work was supposed to be entrusted to local specialists who would certainly be able to interact with the necessary ministries. At the same time, it is recommended to limit the traces leading to the contractor. Make short trips to Afghanistan and Iraq from the office in Dubai only when necessary. In order to avoid accusations against the American military department, certain projects were implemented under the cover of the US State Department. Pay attention to the State Department's research program in Afghanistan. It involved studying the causative agents of particularly dangerous and economically significant diseases, tularemia, anthrax, foot and mouth disease, as well as the collection of biological samples in the country and their transportation to the United States. And now I would like to draw your attention to the participation of the Central Intelligence Agency in the implementation of U.S. military biological programs. According to the already traditional scheme, the work was carried out through contractors, through Johns Hopkins University and through the non-profit organization RAND, which were previously involved in the implementation of dual-use projects. Let me remind you that on October 18, 2019, 2 months before the first official reports of the emergence of a new coronavirus infection, Johns Hopkins University conducted the Event 201 exercise in New York. During this event, actions were practiced in the context of an epidemic of a previously unknown coronavirus, which, according to legend, was transferred from bats to humans through an intermediate host. We have repeatedly noted that the development of the COVID-19 pandemic precisely according to this scenario, as well as the high readiness of American pharmaceutical companies to produce anti-COVID drugs, raise questions about the deliberate nature of the incident and the involvement of the United States in it. The participation of the non-profit organization RAND, which specializes in political issues, in the CIA's biological projects also raises a number of questions. This organization, using the capabilities of artificial intelligence, planned large-scale biological attacks. So, in the RAND report, which we have in our possession, it is indicated, I quote, that the use of such approaches could help in the planning and implementation of a biological attack. It is noted that the intelligence system is able to select the most suitable type of storage of a biological formulation, select methods of masking, delivery and use of pathogenic materials. It is clear that such research does not comply with Washington's obligations on the non-proliferation of biological weapons. These documents indicate the ongoing biological weapons program in the United States. At the same time, the American administration is seeking to expand its scope. On March 23, 2023, a new U.S. bioproduction strategy developed by the Department of Defense was approved. This document defines long-term goals for the development of biotechnologies and the search for their military applications. The stated goal, and I quote, is to ensure technological sovereignty in the field of biomanufacturing and to overtake strategic rivals. In October 2023, the U.S. Department of Defense announced the launch of a training program for specialists to implement the bioproduction strategy. This is the BioFab program. Former employees of military departments with experience in military biological activities will be considered as candidates as a priority. This project is supervised by the Deputy Secretary of Defense for Research and Development, and the technological base for training will be provided by 9 large manufacturing enterprises that specialize in genomic research, bioinformatics, and work with cell and tissue cultures. The training program consists of a 2-month preliminary course and a work experience, I quote, which gives participants the opportunity to take part in real experiments in the production of biomaterials. At the same time, as noted in the official press release dated October 11, the activities of the Department of Defense will be aimed at reviving the U.S. domestic manufacturing potential, which enhances America's strategic competitiveness and allows for the creation of the armed forces of the future. End of quote. Such formulations, combined with the use of a high-performance technological base and the involvement of specialists with experience in dual-use research, may indicate attempts by the United States to recreate technologies for large-scale production of biological formulations as part of an offensive biological program. We have already noted that in order to reduce the political damage from revelations on the Russian side, Washington was forced to limit its military biological presence in Ukraine. Some of the unfinished projects were transferred to countries in Eastern Europe, Africa and Southeast Asia. At the same time, the United States maintains an increased interest in conducting research on Ukrainian territory. The fact of the implementation of American scientific programs in Ukraine in January 2023 was confirmed by the coordinator of strategic communications of the U.S. National Security Council, John Kirby. Moreover, the American administration retains control over some Ukrainian biological facilities, expecting to resume their activities after the end of the conflict. In December 2022, the American company CH2M Hill, in a letter to Ukrainian contractors, confirmed its intention to continue collecting dangerous pathogens in the western regions of the country while reducing the number of laboratories storing such collections. Other tasks include monitoring the sanitary and epidemiological situation and introducing hardware and software systems for bio-risk management. At the same time, Ukrainian organizations were required to submit reports on the work done in these areas. In 2023, the Ukrainian Science and Technology Center which is the main intermediary distributing Pentagon grants, resumed its activities in Kiev. With the financial support of the U.S. Agency for International Development and the mediation of a scientific center based on the Galitsky National Medical University in the city of Lviv, training on responding to biological threats was conducted from August to September 2023. According to the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, this training was attended by representatives of Ukrainian government authorities, including the Security Service and National Police, as well as employees of Western non-profit organizations. Let me remind you that recently the most studied microorganism in laboratories with a high level of isolation is the pathogenic avian influenza virus. It remains the subject of intense media attention, has the potential for cross-species transition and is highly lethal to humans. It is no coincidence that the use of this particular pathogenic biological agent was included in the training scenario. The purpose of the exercise is as follows. The emergence of cases of an infectious disease is recorded in the Nikolaev region of Ukraine. Samples are collected and analyzed. As a result, it is concluded that with a high degree of probability the incident is the result of biosabotage on the part of the Russian Federation. Information about the outbreak is covered by the media, primarily Western ones, to attract attention to the situation. Medical workers are taking to the streets with posters calling for Russia to be held accountable for violating convention obligations. Subsequently, an investigation is initiated using the mechanism of the UN Secretary-General to convince the international community of the transparency and impartiality of the data. The result of the implementation of the scenario is the accusation of Russia for non-compliance with the requirements of the convention, its discredit in the international arena, and the introduction of additional sanctions restrictions against our country. We are supplementing the list of persons involved in the Ukrainian military biological dossier with participants in the training that took place in Lvov. These include the following persons: Filippo Lentzos, member of the Great Britain Biosecurity Steering Committee. She took part in the training as a moderator. Over the past years, Lentzos has been actively publishing activities aimed at discrediting the Russian Federation on biosafety issues in the international arena. Gemma Bosher is a fellow in the Department of War Studies at King's College London. She specializes in intelligence analysis and media disinformation technologies. Oksana Kucheryava, head of the Communications Department of the Center for Public Health of the Ministry of Health of Ukraine. She is involved in project management for government organizations in Ukraine and the USA and is responsible for media planning. Her involvement in the training indicates that issues related to the spread of disinformation in the media will be addressed during the event. It was also established that the head of the reference laboratory for the diagnosis of viral and especially dangerous pathogens, Irina Demchishina, was present at the event. We noted earlier that Demchishina acted as an intermediary in interaction with Pentagon contractors, with the companies Black & Which and Metabiota. She supervised the implementation of DITRA projects in Ukraine. Separately, I would like to note the presence at the training of representatives of the Security Service of Ukraine and the National Police of Ukraine. This is due not only to the closed nature of the event, but also to the possible targeting of Ukrainian special services to carry out provocations with biological weapons under a false flag. We continue to analyze incoming documents, and we will keep you informed.